On my 43rd birthday, my husband and stepsons dumped $12 million debt in my name, forgetting I'd overheard him sneer, "She's our perfect scapegoat." They never imagined I'd turn their empire to ashes. My name is Marissa Hale, and this is my story of revenge. And it began on what should have been the happiest night of the year, the night I should have been celebrated. Yet instead I was being quietly sacrificed. The champagne glass trembled in my hand. Not from nerves, from pure concentrated fury. The baccarat crystal caught the candlelight as I raised it to my lips. 43 candles flickered on my birthday cake like tiny funeral pyres, waiting to be blown out. My husband Robert's arm wrapped around my shoulders, his Armani suit pressed against my bare skin. His smile was perfect for the cameras, all white teeth and practiced charm. But I could feel the lie in his touch. "Before we cut the cake, sweetheart," he whispered, his breath warm against my neck as documents suddenly appeared beside the pristine frosting. The Mont Blanc pen felt heavy in my manicured fingers. "Just sign here. Routine business transfers. Nothing for you to worry your beautiful head about." Nothing for you to worry your beautiful head about? Those words hit like a slap. 20 years of marriage. I'd married Robert when Tyler was 6 and Blake was 4, his sons from his first marriage, and he still saw me as decoration. A pretty face who couldn't possibly understand complicated business matters. The Harvard law degree gathering dust in his study meant nothing. The legal and financial expertise I'd quietly provided to build his empire, forgotten. The pages scattered across the Italian marble countertop, their stark black text a jarring contrast to the celebration around us. Legal jargon I once understood intimately now felt foreign, intimidating. 20 years of shifting from courtroom law to family financial management had dulled my public legal instincts. Or so I let them believe. I should have read every line, questioned every clause, demanded explanations for terms I didn't recognize. Said I signed. Like I always had. Like they expected me to. How many women reading this know that feeling? The slow erosion of your identity until you're just agreeing? Nodding along? Playing small to keep the peace? Tyler and Blake hovered nearby, champagne flutes in hand, watching me with expressions that weren't quite celebration. These boys I'd raised from childhood, now looking at me like I was prey. Tyler's soccer games where I cheered louder than anyone, Blake's graduation where I cried happy tears. All those memories now poisoned by their betrayal. The uncut cake sat between us like a beautiful lie, all perfect frosting and hollow promises. Just like our family. Picture perfect on the outside, rotting from within. "That's my girl," Robert murmured as I signed the final document. His lips brushed my temple, but the kiss felt more like a brand than affection. Always so trusting. So compliant. The words stuck in my throat like poison. As I reached for my champagne glass, the air shifted. Then I heard it. Robert's voice, low but cutting through the noise. "She's our perfect scapegoat." The words hit me like ice water, but in the chaos of the celebration. Guests laughing, champagne glasses clinking, the boys congratulating their father. I couldn't quite piece together what he meant. Perfect scapegoat? For what? The phrase lodged in my mind like a splinter, uncomfortable and confusing. They thought I was signing my own execution warrant. What they didn't know was that their casual cruelty would soon lead me to a discovery that would change everything. Ladies, let me tell you something. The moment you start feeling invisible in your own home, start paying attention. Because invisibility can be your greatest weapon. 2 days after my birthday, I was still haunted by those words. "She's our perfect scapegoat." The phrase echoed in my mind as I tried to make sense of Robert's increasingly distant behavior and the boys' knowing glances. Something was wrong. Deeply, fundamentally wrong. I found myself drawn to Robert's study, not to snoop but to think. This room had always been my sanctuary when the marble and crystal perfection of our home felt too suffocating. I'd often come here to read, to remember who I used to be before I became Mrs. Robert Hale. The afternoon light streamed through the windows as I settled into the leather chair, trying to organize my scattered thoughts. The house was empty, Robert at some business meeting, the boys at their respective pursuits, and the silence felt heavy with unspoken secrets. That's when I noticed it again. The small brown teddy bear on the bookshelf. Sarah had brought it 2 weeks ago during her Thanksgiving visit, laughing about her latest investigative journalism project. "Look at this," she'd said, demonstrating something about surveillance technology disguised as everyday objects. I'd thought it was cute and placed it on the shelf, but in my birthday confusion I'd forgotten all about it. Now, alone and anxious, I reached for the bear absently, the way you might fidget with a paperweight when you're thinking. As I picked it up, my thumb accidentally pressed against its soft belly. Suddenly, voices filled the room. Clear, unmistakable voices. Robert's voice. The timing's perfect. Her birthday. She'll be emotional off guard. We dump everything then. My blood turned to ice. Tyler's voice. And the federal investigation? What if they catch the laundering trail? Blake's voice, cold and merciless. Then they catch her. 12 million in debt. Every dollar in her name. She's the fall guy. Robert again, and Dr. Mitchell's ready. If she resists, we brand her unstable. The hysterical housewife. Their laughter crackled through the bear, each chuckle hammering another nail into my coffin. Perfect scapegoat. Now I understood. The teddy bear was still playing, and I realized Sarah's joke gift was actually a sophisticated recording device that had been capturing everything said in this room for the past 2 weeks. Every business call. Every secret meeting. Every moment where they casually plotted to erase me. My hands shook as I held the innocent-looking bear, understanding that this accidental discovery had just handed me the weapon I needed to fight back. The lawyer in me wasn't dead. She'd just been waiting in the shadows, patient, sharp. No. She was wide awake. For the next few days I pretended nothing had changed. I smiled at breakfast, asked about their days, played the perfect wife and stepmother while secretly learning to operate Sarah's surveillance bear. What I discovered in those recordings made me realize the federal contracts were just the beginning. Robert wasn't just cutting corners on government jobs. He was laundering money for people who made federal investigators look like parking meter attendants. And let me tell you, nothing prepared me for what I heard. The casual cruelty. The calculated manipulation. The way they discussed destroying my life like they were planning a weekend golf trip. At first it was just fragments. Robert's tense conversations with lawyers about the federal investigation, Tyler's late-night phone calls that ended abruptly when I entered a room. Blake's sudden interest in helping Dad with the books. But the conversations got darker. Much darker. Robert wasn't just being investigated for construction fraud. He was washing money for Vincent Caruso, a man whose name appeared regularly in FBI organized crime reports. The federal contracts were small-time compared to the real business, turning dirty money clean through legitimate construction projects. Tyler asking pointed questions about my mental health history suddenly made chilling sense. They were planning to paint me as crazy. The classic move when powerful men want to silence inconvenient women. The bear had captured everything. Their conspiracy discussions, their detailed plans for my mental health commitment, and most damning of all, Robert's ongoing conversations with Vincent Caruso, documenting 3 years of money laundering operations in excruciating detail. Emotional. Grateful. Not thinking clearly. In 3 sentences he'd reduced 20 years of marriage to a psychological profile of weakness. Hysterical housewife syndrome. Even in this day and age they were still using that phrase. Still believing that any woman who fought back was simply hysterical. They'd forgotten something crucial. Hysterical women are dangerous women. We have nothing left to lose. But they'd made a critical error. They'd forgotten that the woman they were betraying had once been one of the sharpest legal minds of her graduating class, and had been secretly managing their financial empire for 2 decades. And she was about to remind them exactly what that meant. The next morning, sunlight streamed through our floor-to-ceiling windows, painting golden rectangles across Egyptian cotton sheets that cost more than most people's monthly rent. But there was no warmth in this light. It felt cold, clinical, like the lighting in a morgue. Robert's side of the bed was already cold, and I could hear him on his victory call downstairs. The man who'd whispered, "I love you," in my ear just hours before was now celebrating my destruction. I pressed my silk nightgown against the marble pillar. Even our bedroom felt like a museum, beautiful and lifeless, heart hammering against my ribs, listening to him celebrate my destruction. "It's done," he whispered into the phone, his voice carrying that satisfied tone men get when they think they've outsmarted everyone around them. "She signed everything. We're protected. 12 million in debt transfers. All in her name now. If anyone comes looking, she's the one holding the bag." The words hit like physical blows, each one designed to break me. But this time I was ready for them. I'd been preparing for this conversation since the teddy bear first revealed their planning sessions. My knees didn't buckle. My vision didn't tunnel. Instead, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years. Power. Cold, calculated, magnificent power. 20 years of playing the perfect wife was over. The real Marissa Hale was about to remind them exactly who they were dealing with. I dialed Janet's number with steady fingers. Janet, Robert's assistant for 15 years. Janet, who'd planned my birthday parties and knew my coffee order. Janet, who'd been given limited instructions by Robert but hadn't been told the full scope of their betrayal. "Oh, Marissa, honey." Janet's voice cracked across the line, and I could picture her in her beige office with her sympathy face perfectly arranged. "I'm so sorry. The bankruptcy filing came through this morning. The debt transfer. Oh, sweetheart, I thought you knew what those documents were for." I let her think I was devastated. Let her hear the shock in my voice that was actually cold fury wrapped in Oscar-worthy acting. Let her report back to Robert that their scapegoat was broken, compliant, exactly as expected. Bankruptcy? But Janet, I don't understand. How could this happen without my knowledge? "The documents you signed last night, sweetheart. Mr. Hale told me it was routine restructuring, but I'm seeing now. Oh honey, I had no idea they were doing this to you." Perfect. Even Janet had been kept in the dark about the real scope of their betrayal, making her sympathy genuine and my performance more believable. But while Janet offered sympathy and tissues, I was already 3 moves ahead, planning their downfall with the precision of a chess grandmaster who'd been studying the board for months. They wanted to play games? I'd show them what a real player looked like. Later that day, the black iron gates of Robert's family home loomed ahead like prison bars. This was where we'd planned our future. Where I'd pictured grandchildren playing in the garden. Where I thought I'd grow old in safety and love. This mansion that I'd helped design, with the kitchen where I'd cooked thousands of meals and the living room where we'd celebrated every holiday. Every corner held memories of the life I thought we were building together. Now it was where I'd begin their destruction. Tyler opened the door before I could knock. 26 years old now, Robert's eldest son. My son for 20 years, the boy I'd raised from age 6. Looked at me with something between pity and contempt. "Mom." The word sounded reluctant in his mouth, like he was already practicing how to disown me. "We need to talk." Blake appeared behind him. 24 years old now, UCLA MBA, sharp suit, empty conscience. The boy I'd raised from age 4, the boy I'd loved, the boy I'd sacrificed my law career to nurture. The child who used to crawl into my lap when thunderstorms scared him. They weren't my sons anymore. They were executioners who'd forgotten they were dealing with the woman who taught them everything they knew about strategy, and who'd been secretly managing the family finances that funded their entire lifestyle. The leather furniture suddenly felt like a courtroom. Robert sat in his throne-like chair, the one I'd picked out at an estate sale, thinking it looked distinguished, fingers steepled like he was about to deliver a verdict. Tyler and Blake flanked him like bodyguards protecting their king. This wasn't a family meeting. This was a tribunal. And they had no idea they were about to face a judge who'd been gathering evidence for months. "The debt transfer is complete," Robert said without preamble, his voice businesslike and cold. "No, good morning, darling. No, how are you feeling? Just straight to the execution. You're now personally liable for $12 million in corporate debt." I let my face crumble. Let tears pool in my eyes. Not hard, considering 20 years of my life had just been revealed as a lie. Let my voice shake with the perfect amount of devastation. 12 million? How is that possible? Robert, we're married. Community property. How can you transfer corporate debt to me personally? Don't act shocked, Tyler snapped, falling into the trap beautifully. His voice carried that entitled edge that rich boys develop early, the tone that says, your problems are your own fault. You've been living off this money for years. Designer clothes, luxury vacations, spa treatments. Someone has to pay the bill. Each cruel word was another piece of evidence. Another recording for the teddy bear to capture. Another nail in their collective coffin. Living off the money? I wanted to laugh. I was the one who'd structured their investments, managed their tax strategies, made their wealth possible from behind the scenes. But sure, Tyler. I was just a parasite. The house is already in foreclosure, Blake added, checking his Rolex with theatrical indifference. Bank seizes assets tomorrow. You have 24 hours to vacate. 24 hours to vacate the home I'd lived in for 2 decades. The home where I'd nursed them through illnesses, celebrated their achievements, built what I thought was a family. I stood to leave, letting them see my shoulders shake with defeat. But as Robert's phone rang and he answered it right there, right in front of me like I was already a ghost, I felt only cold satisfaction. Dr. Mitchell? Yes, it's about Marissa. She's been acting very unstable lately. Emotional outbursts. Paranoid behavior. I'm concerned she might be having a breakdown. Perfect. Even their plan to have me declared mentally incompetent was being recorded in crystal clear audio. Maybe some medication? Something to help her adjust to reality. The audacity was breathtaking. Adjust to reality. Their reality where I was supposed to quietly disappear, take the blame, and let them continue their criminal enterprise uninterrupted. I spun around with perfectly timed fury. You're having me committed? Robert covered the phone, flashing that $1,000,000 smile that had charmed me into marriage 20 years ago. Just looking out for your well-being, sweetheart. You're clearly not thinking straight. They thought they were destroying my voice. What they didn't realize was that they just handed me the smoking gun. And I was about to pull the trigger. The heat shimmered off the concrete as I parked my rental car outside a nondescript storage facility in North Hollywood. Unit 247 had been my insurance policy for 20 years. A secret I'd kept even from Robert. Inside the metal unit, boxes lined the walls like soldiers awaiting orders. 20 years of secrets, carefully catalogued and preserved. Bank statements Robert thought he'd destroyed. He never noticed when I made copies, assuming I was too shallow to understand the documents I was filing. Contracts with suspicious signatures. Photographs of meetings that never officially happened. This was my life's work. Not flower arrangements or dinner parties, but evidence. Documentation. Insurance against the day when being the perfect wife wouldn't be enough protection. But the teddy bear recordings had revealed something even more valuable than I'd realized. Not only had it captured their conspiracy against me, it had also recorded Robert's ongoing conversations with Vincent Caruso, documenting their current money laundering operations in excruciating detail. The federal investigation I'd overheard was just the tip of the iceberg. The real criminal enterprise ran much deeper, and now I had audio proof of their current operations, combined with 20 years of financial documentation from my storage unit that would prove the full scope of their 3-year partnership with Caruso. Some women collect shoes. Some collect art. I collected insurance policies. Back in my dingy motel room, the kind of place where the bedspreads never quite look clean and the air conditioning struggles against the California heat, I sat cross-legged on scratchy polyester organizing my evidence. 2 weeks of teddy bear recordings capturing their recent conspiracy discussions about their 3-year criminal operation. 20 years of financial documents from my storage unit proving every transaction, every bribe, every illegal deal. Every cruel word, every heartless plan, every criminal transaction, every moment they'd thought they were safe from consequences. But this wasn't about rage anymore. This was about justice. Systematic, methodical, beautifully orchestrated justice. I worked like the lawyer I'd once been, cross-referencing the audio recordings with the financial documents from my storage unit. Building an airtight case that would make prosecutors salivate. The teddy bear had captured Robert's recent conversations with Caruso about ongoing money laundering operations, Tyler and Blake's conspiracy discussions, and their detailed plans for my mental health commitment. My storage unit provided the financial paper trail proving their 3-year criminal partnership. Each piece of evidence was a thread in a tapestry of corruption that would unravel their entire world. Anonymous manila envelopes began appearing at strategic locations across Los Angeles. No return addresses. No fingerprints. Just cold, hard evidence delivered to people who could act on it. FBI Field Office. Both the White Collar Crime Unit and Organized Crime Task Force. District Attorney. Internal Revenue Service. Immigration and Customs Enforcement. Environmental Protection Agency. Every agency that had jurisdiction over their various crimes. The teddy bear recordings provided the recent conspiracy evidence, while my carefully preserved financial documents from storage proved the historical pattern of criminal activity. Commissioner Patricia Wells was the first domino to fall. Immigration raids hit 4 construction sites simultaneously, uncovering undocumented workers paid in cash and working in dangerous conditions. Environmental investigators discovered toxic waste dumping that violated federal law. Bank regulators found irregularities in loan applications. But the FBI Organized Crime Unit hit the jackpot. Recent recorded conversations from the teddy bear combined with 3 years of financial records from my storage unit, together documenting a money laundering operation worth over $200 million. Each revelation was a thread pulled from their criminal sweater, and I was just getting started. But the real masterpiece was still to come. What Tyler and Blake didn't know, what they'd never bothered to learn because they were too busy spending money to understand where it came from, was that I'd been quietly managing their trust funds for years. When Robert and I married, he'd appointed me as trustee of the boys' inheritance accounts, thinking it was just another household task for his new wife to handle. He'd never bothered to change that designation, assuming I was too focused on feminine concerns to understand the real power it gave me. The accounts Robert claimed came from careful investments and family money were actually funded by my meticulous financial planning. Every dollar they'd ever spent had passed through systems I'd created, accounts I'd established, investments I'd researched and executed, all under my legal authority as trustee. Every Ferrari payment, every country club membership, every luxury vacation, every designer suit, all traceable to trust accounts that I controlled completely. As trustee, I had the legal authority to freeze their access immediately if I deemed it necessary for the protection of the trust assets. And with a federal investigation into their father's criminal enterprise, protecting the trust from asset forfeiture was definitely necessary. The first call went to Chase Private Banking. "Hello, this is Marissa Hale. I need to immediately freeze trust accounts ending in 4739 and 8264 pending federal investigation." "Yes, I'm the designated trustee with full authority." Tyler's credit card started bouncing first. His $800 a night hotel room in Vegas suddenly required a different payment method. His Ferrari lease payment was rejected. His personal trainer, his stylist, his lifestyle coach, all suddenly requiring cash up front. Then Blake's car payments were declined. His rent bounced. His utilities were shut off. His entire golden lifestyle came crashing down like a house of cards in a windstorm. The boys who'd called me a parasite were about to learn what financial dependence really meant. And I was just getting started. 3 months later, the Beverly Hills construction gala glittered like a jewelry box under crystal chandeliers. White roses, my favorite flowers, though I doubted anyone remembered that anymore, filled massive arrangements throughout the ballroom. The cream of Los Angeles society had gathered to celebrate 20 years of excellence in construction. Robert's night of triumph, where he'd cement his legacy with a celebration of everything he'd built. He had no idea he was walking into his own funeral. I slipped through the service entrance, invisible in the way that middle-aged women often are. The caterers assumed I belonged. The security guards barely glanced at me. The audiovisual team was thrilled when Mrs. Hale herself wanted to review the presentation. "Just making sure everything's perfect for my husband's big night," I smiled, channeling 20 years of practice charm. After 2 decades of hosting events for Robert's company, they trusted me implicitly. Nobody questioned when I mentioned Robert wanted some last-minute changes to the presentation. It took 90 seconds to swap the memory cards. 90 seconds to replace Robert's carefully crafted legacy presentation with my own version of the truth. From my seat at table 12, close enough to see their faces, far enough to avoid immediate detection, I watched Robert command the head table like a king holding court. Tyler and Blake flanked him in matching tuxedos that cost more than most people's monthly salary. They looked so confident, so secure in their victory over the troublesome wife who'd finally been put in her place. They had no idea their kingdom was about to fall. As Robert rose to address the crowd, champagne glass glinting in the chandelier light, I felt a peace I hadn't experienced in 20 years. This wasn't revenge anymore. This was justice. This was accountability. This was the natural consequence of their choices coming home to roost. "Ladies and gentlemen," Robert's voice boomed through the microphone, commanding attention the way powerful men always do. "Thank you for joining us to celebrate 20 years of Hale construction excellence." The lights dimmed. The screen illuminated. And my revenge began. Instead of glossy development photos and profit charts, the audience saw bank statements, wire transfer records, Photographs of Robert accepting envelopes from Vincent Caruso in parking garages and restaurant back rooms. The silence was immediate and total. But the real devastation came when the audio began. Robert's voice, crystal clear through the ballroom's premium sound system. The Ocean View project is a go. 15 million in construction costs, but we both know half of that is clean money coming in, dirty money going out. You could hear a pin drop in that ballroom. Then came the teddy bear recordings. 2 weeks of their conspiracy, played for 800 of Los Angeles's most powerful people. Every cruel word, every calculated betrayal, every moment they'd thought they were safe from consequences. Tyler's voice, she trusts Dad completely. She'll sign anything he puts in front of her. Blake, the perfect scapegoat. Robert, who's going to believe her? We'll have her declared mentally unstable. Hysterical housewife syndrome. Their laughter echoed through the horrified silence like the sound of their world ending. That's when the FBI agents poured through every entrance simultaneously. 23 federal agents in dark suits, moving with military precision through the crowd of shocked socialites and panicking criminals. Robert's handcuffs looked cold against his tanned wrists. Tyler and Blake's perfect brotherhood dissolved into panic and finger-pointing, each trying to throw the other under the bus. The Golden Boys revealed themselves as nothing more than scared children who'd never faced real consequences in their pampered lives. I stood slowly, walking toward the microphone with my head held high. Every step deliberate, elegant, controlled. Every eye in the ballroom followed my movement. 20 years of being invisible, and now I was the only person anyone could see. For those who don't know me, I said, my voice carrying perfectly through the sound system, clear and strong and absolutely unbreakable, I'm Marissa Hale. I paused, letting that sink in. Letting them connect the woman at the microphone with the hysterical housewife they just heard described. 3 months ago, my husband and stepsons transferred $12 million in debt into my name, thinking they could sacrifice me to protect their criminal empire. Another pause. Another moment for the implications to crystallize. What they didn't realize is that for 20 years, I've been documenting every crime, every bribe, every illegal transaction. And for the past 2 weeks, I've been recording every word they said about their plan to destroy me. I smiled. The first genuine smile I'd felt in months. Not the practiced smile of a society wife, but the fierce grin of a woman who'd just won the war. They made one critical mistake. They underestimated me. The applause started slowly, then built into a thunderous ovation. 800 of Los Angeles's elite, giving a standing ovation to the woman who'd just demolished one of their most prominent members. Justice had never sounded so sweet. 4 years later, sunlight filtered through olive trees outside my Tuscan home. A villa I'd purchased with the civil court damages from Robert's liquidated assets. Legal books lined custom shelves in my home office, where I now helped other women escape financial abuse and domestic betrayal. The Marissa Hale Foundation had helped 83 women in its 4 years of operation. Women whose husbands had tried the same scapegoat strategy. Women whose families had attempted to steal their identities, their assets, their voices. We were building an army of survivors who refused to stay silent. The courthouse verdicts had been everything I could have hoped for. Robert, 22 years for money laundering, racketeering, and conspiracy. Tyler, 14 years for financial crimes and conspiracy. Blake, 14 years for fraud and accessory charges. The federal judge had been particularly harsh during sentencing, noting that their attempt to frame me for their crimes showed a callous disregard for justice and a cynical manipulation of familial trust. The $12 million in transferred debt? Declared invalid by federal court. The teddy bear's recordings had proven beyond reasonable doubt that I was an unknowing victim, not a willing participant in their conspiracy. The civil court awarded me $47 million in damages from the liquidation proceeds of Robert's seized empire. The empire I'd helped build from the shadows, now finally acknowledged as partially mine by legal right. The remaining assets were distributed to victims of their crimes and seized by the government. On my desk sat that small brown teddy bear, Sarah's innocent joke gift that had become so much more. My reminder that sometimes the most innocent-looking things are the most powerful weapons. And sometimes, the quietest woman in the room is actually the most dangerous. Every morning I wake up in a home that truly belongs to me. Every decision I make is mine alone. Every dollar I spend comes from accounts that only I control. This is what freedom looks like after 20 years in a golden cage. To every woman reading this story, pay attention to the red flags. Document everything. Trust your instincts. And remember that the men who try to make you small have forgotten something crucial. We're not victims. We're not scapegoats. We're not hysterical housewives who can be easily discarded. We're survivors. We're fighters. We're women who refuse to be silenced. And we're just getting started. This was just one betrayal. But trust me, it won't be the last. Like, share, and subscribe to be ready for the next one.